Welcome to Channel AMEC, your insight to the Australian visa system. Good day everyone, my name is Carl Young, your online YouTube visa consultant. Are you interested about migrate to Australia? Why don't you consider to subscribe to my channel and turn on the bell on the side. And once we have all the updates and news, just like right now, you'll be the first one getting all the notification of the insight. So, just right before close of the day, I'm about to leave for work. I've actually received an article, news article published by a report coming out from the federal government committee. So let's have a look, and it was actually striking good, and that's the reason that I'm here to make this video, to allow everybody to actually know what is coming up. Okay, so you may wanted to search on this news article on the SBS News Parliamentary Report. So it's coming from government directly. It's not from a third party or some institution report or recommendation anymore. It's actually coming from Parliament directly, and warning a persistent skill shortage, 500,000 migrants leave Australia. So what does that say? It basically saying that they want more migrant. Now the SBS news report is good, but I think what I have found alternatively from channel 7, it actually spells out information much more easier to understand and correctly. So again, it's the same thing, it's talking about the same thing as a report pushed action on skill migration. All right, that's very exciting. Obviously, if you've been following my channel for a long time, I've been telling in the past of Australian history, as long as the economy has been hit, one way to do either side of the party, no matter what, it's that actually open up migrations. Okay, migration to push economy recovery, and that is the only way to actually make it easier. Well, the reason is that Australia is a huge continent. It's the 5th or 6th largest continent in the world, and only with 25 million people, it's just not enough. It's not enough for a vast area of the land to actually cover all the economy required, especially in this pandemic era, and we're looking into a post-pandemic how the recovery and utilization of skill migration could actually work. So if you're interested about migrate to Australia, this is a good news. Now, bear in mind, this is only a report came out. The actual implementation and the actual regulation and law is not out yet, but it's actually pointing our direction straight away, and I think it's very beneficial for everyone who's watching and wanting to migrate to Australia. So let's have a look what it says. It says skilled migrants should given easier. Wow, that's great. Now I've been in the industry long enough to see every year they are pushing higher and harder criteria in order for everybody to actually migrate. But look, it's actually talking about, and this is actually coming from Parliament. Again, this is Parliamentary Report, okay? This is coming from Parliament Report, and says they are gonna give you an easier pathway for permanent residency. Wow, look at this. Now, although there has been a lot of news article and people talking about Fortress Australia and things like that, obviously, now some people do not want this to be happening, but again, looking into the past, you can actually pave the way how the future could actually be. So in the past 100 years, Australia is a nation of migrations. There's never been best time, especially the 2032 Olympics. It's going to be held in Australia. Obviously, they're looking in a way to actually build this up for the upcoming 10 to 15 or 20 years. Now, under the suite of measure of Australia's pandemic sparked exodus of 500,000 people left Australia. Now, at this point in time, the net migration is still negative because there are still more people leaving Australia rather than coming into Australia. That's the citizen of Australian who are leaving Australia, and there's obviously no international student, very limited work-related visa holders coming into Australia. Now the Liberal is the actual governing party at the moment. Now they were the party who coined the idea of reducing the immigration quota 2 or 3 years ago. Now they are actually as I mentioned in the past video, that the Scott Morrison is talking about the overhaul migration, meaning that they are turning around. They cannot continue to do this because that will not be a beneficial as for the nation. So Liberal-dominated Parliamentary Committee has released its final report. Now, check that out. That's the final report into the nation's skill migration program under the recommendation of top performing international students. So if you are good at academically, you'll be eligible for 1 year discount on work experience needed to permanent residency. Now, what is that saying? Now, at this point in time, they're talking about the subclass 491. Now, if you utilize subclass 491, once you get into that state nomination visa, you're required to stay and work for 3 years until you'll be eligible to actually transfer into permanent residency. Now, they're talking about if you're a top performing students, no problem. Let's cut 1 year off. 2 years, you'll be able to transfer yourself into a permanent resident. However, the actual law is not implemented yet, so make sure you subscribe to my channel so you have all that updates coming to you. Now, the report also calls for government to consider a longer temporary graduate visa. So at the moment, the PSW, the graduate temporary visa, is giving 2 years, and if you're in the regional areas, they're giving incentive for another 1 or 2 years extensions. Now, they are gonna give you straight 3 years, and then for the extension possibly. But look, I think this will need to be more of reform in this area for the trades, for the chef and cook and all these carpenters, for the graduate temporary visa 485, because at the moment they only get 18 months, which is not really helpful for their skill migration anyway. But all employer nominated, so that including the 482, they're giving out options on pathway to everyone to permanent residency migration, as long as they meet competent English. That's English IELTS 6 across 4 band, and the age has to be under 45. So again, that's very good. So that means what that will actually do is talking about merging the medium, long-term, and short-term lists back together. Now, that's very stupid because previously, a couple of years ago, it's only one big skill occupation list. Then they separated into a medium, long term, and short term. Now they are looking into merging them back together, so everybody, as long as you get nominated for employment, you'll be able to transfer yourself to permanent residency anyway. Now, lower skill occupation would take longer to achieve permanent residency than the higher skill visa holder. I'm not too sure how that will work. So for example, if you go into trade as a cook or chef, then you probably require more work time. So for example, at this point in time, you get 482, then you need 3 years to transfer yourself into a permanent residency. So they're talking about adding this up to 4 or 5 years, or perhaps lowering the higher skill occupation. For example, accountant, you're not required to go through 3 years to transfer to the 186, possibly potentially 2 years, maybe. Now that would be going back to the same model of what 457 is. So again, it's slap in the face of the Australian government. They're actually going back to the old model. Anyhow, don't know how that will work, but let's wait and see. Now, more concession added to temporary regional visa, including a raising age limit to 50. Now, I totally agree on that one. A reduction of prior experience of 2 years and priority process. So that is basically saying if you are heading to regional for a work and employment related visa, you can be at age under 50, and reduction of prior experience. That means you don't need to have experiences there. So at this point in time, the TSS 482 visa required to have at least 2 years of work experience in order to actually be sponsored by an employer. So they are reducing that to reduction of prior experience to 2 years and priority processing. So I think this is talking about 494. At this point in time, they require 3 years. Now they are reducing it to 2 years. Well, that's not really helpful, but see how that goes, because you can still access to 482. Why would you access to 494? That would actually really confuses applicant, and I do notice that the 494 visa hasn't been really utilized much during the past years because it's just a badly designed visa. If you got 3 years, why not just lodge 186 rather than going to 494, which doesn't give you a permanent residence straight away. So anyway, we don't know what is coming up. So the actual law, once the actual law out, we will notify everybody. Committee Chair, Liberal member of Parliament Julian Leeser said that a recommendation will aim to address skill shortage and providing pathway permanent residence. So that's very good because if you do have that permanent residence, turn that ads off so it's not distracting. If they provide, they now admit that having this option to become a permanent resident as a pathway is very, very vital for migrant to stay and for international student to come to Australia. It's Australia should, as a government, should actually admit this because it's just a fact. It's just a fact. Because in the previous, the Minister of Immigration or Home Affairs ministers, they don't see things like this. They reckon without offering permanent residency, people will still come. Now, obviously, they can't do that anymore because they get the nation has been struck badly by the virus, so they need to get that economy back. He said the measure could be able to best and brightest international student health skill gaps, as there has been more than 500,000 people left Australia, and the lack of skilled migrants are record low. Unemployment has led to major skill shortage. What does that mean? Although Australia has a low unemployment rate, that means everybody almost have jobs, but there's still shortage. That means there's more jobs out there required to be done, to be taken, but there's no people. There's no one else left in Australia. The report called for the ENSCO, basically what it says. They wanted to redesign a new, more flexible skill ID system. So don't know how that will work, because at the moment it's going crazy by every states having different skill occupation, and Victoria and New South Wales came out with a new idea of target sector. Now everybody's so confused. So how would the federal government come up with another new occupation ID? I think that would be great. Now the Labour Committee member described the finding of missed opportunity that would be easier for employer to bring a migrant but do nothing to boost wage and national wealth. Now, unfortunately, that's what it is. The report is also a remarkable blatant repudiation of a government member of Peter Dunn's tenure as a Minister of Immigration. So that's basically saying, this is basically saying, so what you had changed, now you are changing it back. That's exactly what I said. And over the years, that's what I have predicted, because once you see economy goes down by in Australia, there's always a couple ways to do it. You sell more coals, sell more minerals and stuff. But at this point in time, due to pandemic, these exports of minerals has gone down, and especially the third or fourth largest export market for Australia is international education. Now that's directly linked to migration policy. So in order to actually activate this, a better migration system, an attractive migration system, visa system, shall be planned and to attract more and better skilled migrants to come. A dissenting report from Green Senator Nick McKim said the recommendation will weaken labour market testing and give rich people a greater access to visa. Well, obviously now whatever, but no, I agree and I disagree on this comment, because no matter what you do, there's always other people. You still get people to come in, but I think the the urgency here is to get the economy back, and they can alter and change anyway. Now, the University of Australia Chief Executive Catriona Jackson welcome incentive for higher quality students remain in country, and they're exactly the kind of higher education. So again, the unis and the institutions, the education sectors loved it because they do know that a good migration, a good attractive migration policy will actually enhance the international education market and industry of Australia. So again, this is great news. Just wanted to share with you. Now, bear in mind, this is only a report and it's a final report came out. The actual implementation of the regulation or law is not out yet. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. So once it's out, we'll get that information to you directly. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next video. Goodbye.